I'm going to go ahead and start recording. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to CE 452, not ENGR 452. I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But again, I hope, I mentioned this before class started, but I hope everybody had a relaxing summer, or as relaxing as possible, given where we find ourselves these days. I'm going to jump right in. First off, I'll go ahead and mention my office hours, Monday, Wednesday, 2 to 4, and Tuesday, Thursday, 10 to noon. They're going to be through Teams. If you look on Teams, you should see that you've been added to not only a group for the class, but there's also another group just called Dr. Michelson's Office Hours. All of my students and advisees were added to that group. So you have a couple of ways of accessing me, and we can do a phone call, do a video conference, whatever we need to do, either with class or advising, what have you. Right off the bat, I want to mention your first assignment. This is a seminar class. The main purpose of it is to cover topics that are particular to you pursuing a career as a civil engineer. And so as civil engineers, one of, if not the biggest component that you should be dealing with right now is your FE exam. Now, if there's 14 topics on the exam and there's 14 weeks in the semester, if we covered everything all in once a week, that would be it. And I don't think that would do you justice given everything going on these days, because there's some other things I want to cover that I think are going to be particularly important with the coronavirus and your securing it. So what that means is I've posted a poll on Blackboard. The idea is I list all the topics that are on the FE exam, and what I want you to do is I want you to take a second and look at it, and I want you to rank which topics you'd like to cover first. So there's 14 topics, and so if there's any that you would like to cover sooner rather than later, I want you to rank them. I want you to take a second, think about it, because starting in week 3, we're going to start doing some FE exam review, and I'm going to cover the most requested topic first, and then we'll sort of work our way down. We're not going to start that in week 2 because I got to get time for you all to send the results in. But I want to mention that now. Now that poll is going to close Monday at 5 p.m., so I want everybody to do it. It shouldn't take too much time, but I do want you to think about your response. Before we get into just the class as a whole, I want to real quick do a quick software check. I've got the roster here. This is the only day I'm going to go through the roster, but I'm going to go through everybody's name, and you can either put it in the chat or through your microphone. I want you to make sure that you can see the screen, you can see me, you can hear the audio, that everything's coming through clearly. So we'll start off with Farah. All right. Carl. All right. Gavin.
Yep, I can hear you.
All right. And Jeffrey.
I'm here, and I can hear you good.
All right. We have 3 Mr. Adkinses. I have to. Khalid, can you hear me? All right. Jeremy. Jonathan. Let's see. He's not on. Okay. Chase. All right. Brandon. I'm pretty sure we chatted a little bit ago. Tyler. He is not on. Victoria. Matt. Elizabeth. Josh. Okay. Michael? Adam? And Isaiah? Awesome. Okay. All right. So let's first off talk about what's going on with this being CE 452 as opposed to ENGR 452. So one thing I wanted to mention right off the bat, there were some questions about the capstone credit on DegreeWorks, and so I wanted to make sure that was addressed. So first off, before the curricular changes were made, the capstone credit was always only for caps, like the indicator on DegreeWorks would only show up for capstone 2, not capstone 1. So even if we were still in ENGR 452, that would still show as blank. It wouldn't show up until 453. But the main reason for the curricular changes is really just because of the edits that we made to the degree to make it more basically civil focused. So before last semester, we were using the same ENGR 452, 453 sequence that other majors were using, particularly like for example, mechanical. But we never really needed the 2-semester sequence like mechanical did, because they were building, like they have to build like a widget, a gizmo. They have to, construct a prototype. We don't really do that in civil engineering. I'm not going to make you all go out and build a retaining wall or anything. That doesn't really work like that. We just, focus on our designs. So as such, we've never really needed the second semester, or we never really needed the 2-year sequence. And so up until now, we've really only been using, the civils have been using 452 for what we're going to use it for this semester, which is largely FE exam review and some coverage of professional related topics. And so as such, instead of engineering 452, you're in CE 452. What should have happened is once the degree got activated, or once the course changes got activated, everybody should have gotten that automatic email, but I guess that didn't happen. I guess it's up through the ropes. I can tell you that Marshall has been, a flurry this summer with, getting ready for, the fall with all the changes because of the coronavirus. So we apologize for that, but rest assured that everybody in this class is on the correct track for graduation and whatnot. So you all have had me for class before. If you all have any questions, you can interrupt me and just say, hey, Dr. Mike, what the heck are you talking about? I'm going to get right into it to talk about course operation. Largely what I'm doing this semester is what I did last semester when we went online, and what I'm doing in my other classes. We're going to use Blackboard for our live meetings and whatnot. I will mention, and I have here that exams are going to be conducted via Blackboard. We're not really going to have exams in this class, but we will have FE style practice quizzes that will be through Blackboard. But we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But by and large, everything, I treat this like I do all my other classes. One thing, though, I will mention, part of this class, like I said, beyond FE review, is focused on getting you prepared for your career as an engineer. And so it might seem like a somewhat dry topic, but we are going to cover some of the technology that you're going to see in the workplace. Some of this, you've been exposed to tangentially as an undergraduate student, but I mean, that aside, there are some things that you're going to need to be able to do in the workplace that you probably haven't had to do as a student. And so we want to make sure that you're aware of that and ready for that, especially in the light of COVID, because it did change things in the workplace, as everybody knows. If you look on Teams, like I said, there's a Teams channel for everybody in the class as well as for the advisees. I'll use Teams for periodic class announcements. I'll mention that something's posted or something's graded, or we also might use it as a backup in case Blackboard decides to crash on us. You might remember last year when it was either concrete design or steel design. I don't remember which one it was, but there was one day that like Blackboard just sort of crashed on us, and we ended up having to switch to Teams. And so I always have a plan B, and so Teams is going to be our plan B. Beyond that, some of the stuff in this slide I've just used in other classes, like just make sure your browser works and you've got Microsoft Office and all of that installed. Um, in terms of the course overview, this is a pretty simple class in terms of grading. I'm only going to grade based off of two components, and that's the attendance, which is pretty heavy because, I mean, this is it's a seminar. So, you know, one of the big aspects of it is that you just come to class. Now, the rest of the grade I have here is homework, and that homework is really going to come from two things. It's going to come from participation in your FE style quizzes, as well as your periodic homework assignments throughout the semester. No textbook. You don't have to buy anything. Just, you know, come to class attentive and ready. It's probably not a bad idea that if you don't have an FE style calculator that you get one, but you probably already have one anyways. So I'll just sort of leave it at that. I'm going to record attendance based on the log on Blackboard. So the way attendance works is when you log into Blackboard Collaborate, it records a log of how long you were logged in. So just make sure that you're on time and that you stay for the whole lecture. Which calculator is that? That's a great question. Okay, let me ask this. Do you have a Casio, one of the Casios that you used in Engineering 111? Then you're good. What I was basically meaning is that as long as you have a calculator that's approved for use on the FE exam, that you're good. But if you still have the calculator that you used in Engineering 111, we specifically request that students get that calculator because it's approved on the exam. So that calculator is fine. Yes, the Casio FX15ES Plus. Yes, there's two. For Casios, and this is actually the whole point of next week's lecture, but for Casios, I believe it's either the FX115 or the 991, either one of those. But next week, I'm specifically going to be going through the FE exam, you know, requirements and PE exam licensure, and I'll talk about those specific, like not just the calculator policy, but everything related to it next week. I am recording the lectures. I'm going to post them to YouTube, but because of the fact that we're recording this through Blackboard, I have to actually go and download it and then upload it to YouTube. So it doesn't happen automatically like it did when we were in face-to-face. So it might take me a day or two. So just bear with me on that. But you can also access the recordings inside Blackboard Collaborate, and I'll show you that next week when this recording processes, so that you can see that. And then the homework assignments, like I said, there's really going to be, you know, some written and interactive assignments, but also some FE style quizzes. Typically for the FE exam review sessions, what we'll do is we'll spend the class covering a topic. Let's say it's ethics, so we'll have an ethics review in class, and then you'll have a week or so or you know, up until the next week to complete the next or the FE style quiz on that topic. And what I do is, so I take the FE exam, and you know, there's X number of questions on the exam, and you have, you know, this, you know, Y amount of time, so you can figure out the time per question. And so I set up the multiple choice questions on the Blackboard quizzes so that it mimics the FE exam as closely as possible, so that when you go in to take the FE exam, at least the environment in Blackboard matched that as closely as possible. Again, the idea is to get you ready as quickly as we can. Before I jump into some of the topics that we're going to cover throughout the semester, anybody got any questions on the operation? I'm going to pull up the syllabus here in a second. We go over outside sources that we can get for extra practice. Are you talking about like on other topics on the exam? What do you mean by outside sources? Like other practice books? I might. So I've recorded reviews in the past on pretty much every topic on the exam, except for one, and that's environmental, because I'm not, I don't know anything about environment. I'm joking, but all seriously, environmental is my weakest topic, So I haven't really covered that, but I've covered just about everything else, and I can link you to that. As for extra practice, like I can probably make the quiz questions available to you. One thing I'll say is I probably won't make it available for extra credit per se, like for the grade, but honestly, I think that with a class like this, particularly because it's a seminar, the grade is really not going to be anything to worry about. This is not a difficult course, and believe me, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. One of the things I'll probably do about the poll is I'm going to take the poll, but I'm also going to compare the results of that poll from our institutional data. So we get reports as to how well Marshall students perform in various areas periodically. And so, for example, we don't have tests in college. We have celebrations of learning, and I am upset that everybody's calling this a test. It's hurting me right here. So we get reports from NCEES that tell us how our students perform in various areas. So, for example, if the class as a whole comes back to me and they say we really want to do a math review, then we'll do a math review. But if I also look and I see, well, we probably need to cover, I don't know, statistics because, or we probably need to cover, I don't know, engineering econ or something, then we'll do that too. So I'll make sure that I not only cover the topics that you all are most anxious about, but I'll also make sure and try and cover the topics that, the data shows that you all will want to review. So I'll take both into account. Again, I want you to pass your first time too, believe me. I will say one thing though, our test averages and our test performance at Marshall has been very good here recently. I wore my stamp out filling out EI reference forms over the summer because I filled out a lot of them. So that you all did very well. The last group did, and I'm sure you will also. Any others? No, and keep in mind that this is a pretty open-ended class. I mean, I want everybody to feel comfortable asking about anything that's on their mind, especially because you all are seniors, and so this is coming. Your graduation's coming up, and so I have some tentative topics that I'm going to discuss on the agenda for the semester. But if there's something that the class is passionate about, that we can cover later on in the semester, we can do that too with some feedback. So I really want this to be, a little bit open-ended as well. Any other questions? All right, let me put the syllabus. Okay, I'm actually going to focus primarily on the last page because I want to talk about the topics of review. I don't have this super formal schedule set up because I want to see where everybody sits in terms of what they want to cover on the exam. So I was kind of holding back on, okay, this is what we're going to cover this week. This is what we're going to cover the next week, because the results of that poll are also going to tell me, do we do 7 weeks of review? Do we do 8 weeks of review? I want to keep that open-ended. But there's a couple of things I do want to cover. First off, I can tell you what we're going to cover next week. And I know that you've probably had this from me before, maybe last year, or maybe you haven't seen it since you took 103. But you all are seniors, and this semester is probably the semester that many of you will take your FE exam. So I want to go through the step-by-step process on how to, what do you do to register for the exam, what's on the exam. I want to talk about, what's the STEP TE license, all of that. And I know I've probably covered it in other courses before, but this is critical for you now. This is your time sensitive topic. And plus that'll give us time to review the poll and have some discussion about what we want to cover in FE exam review. And so obviously a lot of the class is going to be on FE exam review. I have here ethics and engineering. We may have a specific focus on that. We might not, because ethics is a topic on the exam, so we may just cover that with our exam review. But a couple other topics of concern. One thing I do want to cover is the job hunt, specifically, going through that. I know we talk about that, at a high level in co-op. When I taught co-op, it was more about the nuts and bolts aspect of that process, preparing your resume, actually navigating the interview and, your etiquette dinner and all that. But I actually want to discuss, that job hunt process. And I want to talk about graduate school as well, just to, make sure everybody's horizons are broadened a little bit. One other thing I really want to talk about is software and workplace software. And I'm going to tell you why. I did a lot of, talking on the phone this May and this summer with, engineers looking to hire our students. Like I said, I mean, not only did we have a lot of FE exam, a high FE exam pass rate, but one thing that I hope does give you a little bit of comfort is that we still had a pretty good hiring rate, even through the coronavirus. And I think that we're a bit lucky in our area. We have government agencies in the area that are always going to need people. We're civil engineers, and so we're always needing to build bridges and roads and so on and so forth. And so a lot of the firms were still hiring, fresh graduates, as new engineers. Admittedly, the internships kind of declined a bit, but the full-time employment gigs, at least, from what I was seeing, they were still hiring. But here's the thing. So the engineering firms, the DOHs, the Army Corps, all that, they, had to go online just like we did. And, talking to a lot of the folks on the consulting side and on the government side, this software stuff that everybody suddenly had to adopt because of the coronavirus, it's not going anywhere, even if the coronavirus, even if it goes away. I think that a lot of the software tools that we've had to adopt are going to stick around for a long time. To give you an example, let's take Microsoft Teams. There's a lot of companies and a lot of organizations that never used that program until the coronavirus, and now it's their lifeblood, and they're finding that they're able to get things done more effectively. They're operating more efficiently, and they're a leaner and meaner outfit as a result. So to not cover that stuff would do you a disservice. And I know you're probably like, oh God, more software, but I want to make you as marketable as possible. And so if that means going through how to set up an Outlook calendar invite, how to, set, like, what is a doodle poll, what is, how to set up meetings in Microsoft Teams and the different ways of or the different aspects of that, I think it's valuable for you to market yourself as a professional, because that's the stuff you're going to be doing when you get out of here. What should be in meeting minutes? How do you format meeting minutes? How do you format meeting agendas? Y'all are going to be doing that real quick when you get out of here. And having an edge on that is important. And we sort of talk about that at a super high level in co-op, but I kind of want to dig into that a little bit more in here. There's also some other aspects I want to talk about. I want to see if we have time, I would like to talk about sustainability. And I might not even do that myself. I might bring in a guest lecturer or another faculty to talk about that, because that is something that, dependent upon the discipline, you might not talk about it very much. I mean, honestly, in In structures, we haven't talked about it very much because it's kind of difficult to sustainably build a bridge. It's just a hunk of concrete and steel. But building sustainable infrastructure is incredibly important and is sort of the new buzzword in our field. And so I want to make sure that you all have the competitive edge, that you understand what LEED is, what it means for a system to be LEED certified, what it means for you to be LEED certified, and so on and so forth. I want you to again have as much competitive edge as possible. If it's the way I look at this class is, okay, there's a job offer and there's a Marshall student and somebody else. What do we cover in here to give you that edge? That's kind of what I want this class to be about. And so like I said, I mean, I don't really think your grades are going to be too much of an issue. It's more about what do we cover to give you that edge. Does anybody have any questions or any thoughts, anything related to that? And to be clear, again, I want this to be an open discussion. You can ask me about anything. You can ask me about the class, about the coronavirus, life, anything. All right, let me pull something up real quick. So give me 1 second. Actually, well, I'll tell you what. I don't think that sharing is going to work with the way I set this up, but that's not really going to matter. If you go onto course content, what you're going to find is the preference poll for FE exam topics. And so just to be clear, the way it's set up, there's only one question. What I did is I went through the latest distribution of topics on the FE exam, and there's 14 topics, okay? And so I'll pull it up myself so that everybody sees that just to go through it with everybody. But the 14 topics are, there's math, there's ethics, econ, statics, dynamics, deformable bodies, civil engineering materials, fluids, geomatics, then there's water and environmental, and then the final four are structures, geotech, transportation, and construction. What I want everybody to do is I want you to rank them. So when I say rank, if you rank it number 1, that is the most important topic to you. Number 1's the most important. Number 14 is the least important to you. I want you to go through those and sort of think about it and ask yourself, if you had to cover, these topics, what would be the most important to you? So, I mean, you could do it probably right now in the space of a couple minutes, but I want you to think about it and tell me what you think is the most valuable topic to cover first and in what order. And what we're going to do next week is we're going to talk about the licensing requirements, the paperwork, the exam, specifics in general, and then 3 or 4. Well, let me say this. It's funny you say that. This is where you get to be a bit choosy. For example, it's more about the topics that you're weak in. For example, if you're a rock star in engineering mechanics or in engineering economics, we don't need to waste our time in here covering that. We can cover, stuff. We can cover ethics or civil engineering materials or whatever. But let me say one thing about the exam, and that comment that you made is a really critical point. I think that a lot of times students getting ready for the FE exam think just like that it's like 3 to 4 years all on one exam. How do I go about that? To be clear, what I found is that the exam doesn't really ask you super duper difficult questions about each topic. The exam's not hard, it's just long. Okay, if you take each topic and look at the types of questions that it asks you, you'll find that they're fairly basic. They're not super challenging. You know, you're not going to see that would be the yes, you're going to pick the weakest topics are going to be the ones that you find are most important. But the big thing is I don't want you to go to the exam being scared. I mean, it's not trying to trip you up. Like, you know, you've you know the not the not complicated way. I mean, like everybody in here remembers, you know, that one exam you took that was the hardest exam you ever had, and all the problems were really challenging. And if you think the FE exam is nothing but that, it's just super duper hard problems on every topic, you're wrong. It's not that. It's your fundamental basic assessment of these topics. Like, for instance, when you see the reinforced concrete design problems that you could get on the exam, it is so basic compared to the stuff that we did in class, like the, you know, T-beams and doubly reinforced beams. You aren't going to have to deal with any of that on the exam. It's not that tough. The not complicated way. See, the chat doesn't come up in the recordings or on the YouTube recordings. I just won't mention that verbally. Oh Lord. Any other questions, concerns, anything that yes.
I have a quick question about how the exam is structured, because are we treating it as like a very broad test or more focused on the pathway we want to take? Because I'm more.
Are you talking about the FE exam, or are you talking about what we're going to do in this class?
FE exam, a little bit.
So the FE exam is the FE exam. It is what it is. You can't really like focus the exam on a particular topic. It's just a test that you take. The way the exam is structured, there are a series of topics, and NCES will tell you, okay, let's just take structural engineering. So in structural engineering, you'll get 10 to 15 questions on this range of topics. And so as long as you're, you know, familiar with those topics, you should be able to navigate those questions. So, but not like you can choose, well, I'm only going to do, you know, these questions, and not like you get the whole exam. The only time that you as an engineer get to choose is the PE exam. The way the PE exam works, at least how it works now, is the morning session is generic, that everybody takes the same morning session, but in the afternoon, you select the discipline that you want to focus on. So for me, I took a general purpose morning exam, but my afternoon exam was solely structural engineering.
Okay, that was what I was asking about, because every engineer is different. They're not going in the same field initially, but that's what I'm curious about.
No, you're right, and so that's why the FE exam is standard for everybody, but the PE exam you focus on a discipline. Like I mean, for me, I would, you know, I would not take the afternoon in transportation. You know, when I went and did my master's and PhD and all the, you know, what I focused my career on, I did not focus on transportation. So it wouldn't make any sense for me to take the afternoon transportation exam. And to answer your question, Gavin, I mean, yeah, I mean, basically, yes. The you see the reinforced concrete examples that I do in class, it's ASYD minus A over 2. It's the simplest problems. Because again, it's not trying to trip you up. It's the basic, you know, the basic stuff. There's just a lot of it. So look at it this way. When I took the exam, it was 8 hours long. When you take it, it's less than 6. So you all get a little bit of a break, and they split it up into 2 sessions. So you have it's like 2 hours, and it's like 2.5 hours, and then you have lunch, and that's another 2.5 hours. But we will talk about all those, like the nitty gritty next week. And like I said, I know I probably covered it in another class, but it's really important that we cover this now. Any other questions? All right. Well, so I want everybody to do that poll by Monday at 5 p.m. because I want to be able to come to class on Wednesday and say, here's the results, here's what we're going to cover, okay? But next week, we're going to cover all of the nitty gritty with the taking of the exam, the process towards your PE, the paperwork that you'll need to fill out once you pass the exam. I'll go through all that with you so that everybody will know how to do that. You all will be set after that. Sound good? Yeah, like I said, we ended early, so that's all I have, everybody. I will see you all next Wednesday at noon. All right.